All right. We are on Ezra chapter 7. All right. Now after this, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Sariah, son of Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Shallum, son of Zadok, son of Ahitub, son of Amariah, son of Azariah, son of Meraioth, son of Zerahiah, son of Uzi, son of Buki, son of Abishua, son of Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the chief priest. This Ezra went up from Babylonia. He was a scribe, skilled in the law of Moses, that the Lord, the God of Israel, had given, and the king granted him all that he asked, for the hand of the Lord was on him. All right, so why the genealogy all the way back to Aaron? Because it was only the family, the sons of Aaron, who could be part of the priests, right? And of all those names, I really only recognized one, Phinehas. And I'm not sure if it's the same Phinehas or not. But there was a Phinehas during either the time of the judges or the time of it was after, I guess, Israel had come into the promised land. But one of the prohibitions was against marrying outside of the Jewish faith. And they had one of the leaders of the clans had married, or his son had married a non-Israelite. And while they were in the marriage bed, Phinehas took a spear and impaled both of them. Don't know if it's the same Phinehas or not, but the name sticks out. So now timing.
Quick question. So this is necessary, the list of his linealogy, if I'm saying that right.
Genealogy. Lineage or genealogy. Okay. But you can say linealogy because I know what you meant.
Thank you. So without that genealogy, Ezra has no standing. Is that what we should understand?
Has no standing as a priest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, in other words, he can't rebuild the temple or continue in that process.
Well, yes and no. Remember, it wasn't the rebuilding of the temple was a joint effort. You had the teaching and the blessing of the priesthood and the Levites, but you also had the civil side of it well. Zerubbabel was not a Levite or a priest. And he was, just as important in rebuilding the temple as anyone that was a priest or a Levite. So again, a joint effort, if you will, between church and state. But the timing of this is important. So my note says that the phrase that this chapter begins with, "Now after this," spans an interval of time more than 5 decades from the dedication of the temple in 516 BC to the 7th year of Artaxerxes, which will come up in verse 7 here. Biblical record passes over in silence the years of Darius's successor, Xerxes, who was the king at the time of Esther. Events recorded in the rest of Ezra and all of Nehemiah transpired in the reign of Artaxerxes. So there's a big chunk of time that gets skipped over. So you had the temple that was dedicated, and now you have this Ezra being dispatched, if you will. Verse 7, "And there went up also to Jerusalem in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king, some of the people of Israel, and some of the priests and Levites, the singers and gatekeepers, and the temple servants. And Ezra came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. For on the day of the 1st month he began to go up from Babylonia, and on the 1st day of the 5th month he came to Jerusalem, for the good hand of his God was on him. For Ezra had set his heart to study the law of the Lord, and to do it, and to teach his statutes and rules in Israel."
What were the priests doing?
I imagine that the priests were doing priestly things.
It sounds like it was getting out of hand with,
Well, so and it's possible, right? Because if we're skipping 50 years since the dedication of the temple, think of the life cycle of your average congregation. So most Christian congregations have a life cycle of about 75 years. All right. They start out and you have this great enthusiasm, right? And things progress, but then it gets to a point and then it'll start to decline after that. So I imagine, because in the previous chapel, you had this great passion, you had this great fanfare, this great dedication of God's people. But when you fast forward 50 years, what happens? You have a whole generation then that dies out, right? And a new generation takes their place. And now even that generation is older, and their children are starting to arrive on the scene. And by the time you get to the 2nd or 3rd generation, after the dedication of the temple, you are right. I imagine some enthusiasm has begun to wane. Right? One of my favorite stories, and I've got a long sermon for you all on this one as well, but there was some nonsense carried on by one of the 12 tribes, and they found a priest to bless their nonsense, and this priest happened to be a grandson of Aaron. Okay, and so again, it doesn't take very many generations for things to go off the rails, if you will. Look at our Lutheran church. For generations, you had a pretty stable pipeline, kids following in their parents' footsteps. But all it takes is a couple generations of kids not following in their parents' footsteps, and then what happens? A lot can change. So I would imagine that ministry that the priests were doing included some teaching, but they were probably teaching and preaching to the choir, if you will, folks that had a similar motivation, similar commitment to keeping this going. But as you get a couple generations removed from that, it's not hard to say that maybe the grandkiddos didn't know their catechism as well as their grandparents. And I say that tongue in cheek, but my Oma she always had her catechism memorized better than I did. Even when I was in seminary, she could outduel me with the catechism quotes. So if I were to hazard a guess, I would probably say that that's why the teaching ministry of Ezra was probably more pronounced than it was in some of the priests who were already there and serving. Verse 11, this is a copy of the letter that King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest, the scribe, a man learned in the matters of the commandments of the Lord and his statutes for Israel. Artaxerxes, King of Kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, peace. And now I make a decree that any one of the people of Israel or their priests or Levites in my kingdom who freely offers to go to Jerusalem may go with you. For you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to make inquiries about Judah and Jerusalem according to the law of your God, which is in your hand, and also to carry the silver and gold that the king and his counselors have freely offered to the God of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, with all the silver and gold that you shall find in the whole province of Babylonia, and with free will offerings of the people and the priests, vowed willingly for the house of their God that is in Jerusalem. With this money, then, you shall with all diligence buy bulls, rams, and lambs, with their grain offerings and their drink offerings, and you shall offer them on the altar of the house of your God that is in Jerusalem. Whatever seems good to you and your brothers to do with the rest of the silver and gold, you may do according to the will of your God. The vessels that have been given you for the service of the house of your God, you shall deliver before the God of Jerusalem, and whatever else is required for the house of your God, which it falls to you to provide, you may provide it out of the king's treasury. I, Artaxerxes the king, make a decree to all the treasurers in the province beyond the river. Whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven requires of you, let it be done with all diligence, up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and salt, without prescribing how much. Whatever is decreed by the God of heaven, let it be done in full for the house of the God of heaven, lest his wrath be against the realm of the king and his sons. We also notify you that it shall not be lawful to impose tribute, custom, or toll on any one of the priests, the Levites, the singers, the doorkeepers, the temple servants, or other servants of this house of God. And you, Ezra, according to the wisdom of your God that is in your hand, appoint magistrates and judges who may judge all the people of the province beyond the river, all such as know the laws of your God. And those who do not know them you shall teach. Whoever will not obey the law of your God and the law of the king, let judgment be strictly executed on him, whether for death or for banishment, or for confiscation of his goods, or for imprisonment. Blessed be the Lord, the God of our fathers, who put such a thing as this into the heart of the king, to beautify the house of the Lord that is in Jerusalem, and who extended to me his steadfast love before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty officers. I took courage, for the hand of the Lord my God was on me, and I gathered leading men from Israel to go up with me. All right. We'll come back to that in 2 weeks. Remember, next week we've got the voters meeting at 10 o'clock to issue a call for a settled pastor. So please mark your calendars so you can come and join us.